Donington Park playing host to the second meeting of the year for the Ginetta G40 Cup, and it's a rather damp Donington, I'm afraid, that greets the drivers for this, their second race of the weekend, their first of two on the main race day today. Track conditions are ever evolving, but they seem to refuse to become fully dry, so it will be a damp and greasy circuit that greets the packed grid of drivers ahead of this race. We've got several races in one. We've got the G40 Cup and the GRDC class, and each of them have two subcategories as well, which we'll keep you abreast of as we get through the day. Andy McEwen here in the comms box, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined for the first time by Graham Johnson. And Graham, you will know, perhaps in more recent past, for his British GT exploits, rather successful GT4 exploits from a few years ago. But Graham, Ginetta as a brand and this championship in particular is something that is very close to your heart. Yeah,
I've raced Ginetta several times. So I've actually raced this car, albeit the GT5 one, which has a different gearbox to these. These are H-pattern, and I'm used to a sequential shift in these. But yeah, I went on to do British GT with Ginetta, and we won the title. We won the GT4 title in 2016. We won Pro-Am in 2017. So I've got a lot of affection for the Ginetta brand.
And the G40 is a very, very versatile car, and one that produces good racing, as it did yesterday in what was a proper battle between Tom Golding and Giles Dawson, arguably the two championship favourites coming into the year. Giles Dawson came out on top, and we've already, I'm afraid, had our first spin for Jacqueline Waymont. That looks like the exit of McLean's. A harmless spin for the novice racer, who gets going once again. But yes, yesterday, Giles Dawson and Tom Golding, they traded the lead on a number of occasions. It was eventually Dawson that held on, because every time Golding went through, he seemed to end up giving the lead straight back again, and I reckon we should be in for a similar kind of battle today. The grid for this one you've just seen scrolling through the bottom of your screen. Tom Golding on the pole position, because the grid for this one based upon fastest laps from yesterday. Now the conditions today though, Graham, very different. We've spoken all morning about this damp and greasy circuit, and it goes without saying that presents a unique set of challenges for the drivers that they didn't have to face yesterday.
Yeah, and I gather for an awful lot of these drivers, it's their first time in the wet. The guys in GRDC on a road tyre. I'm expecting a lot of carnage on the first lap.
You've seen these races before, haven't you? Well, of course, the last time we raced here at Donington Park with this championship, it was a championship decider at the end of last year, a championship that was decided in the G40 Cup on the very final lap of the very last race of the year. And given how equally matched Golding and Dawson have been this year, I wouldn't be at all surprised if we have a similar situation at the end of 2020. The very, very big grid is more or less in line now. The last couple of rows in position, the yellow flag's actually being waved towards the back. But yes, we're still waiting for the last couple of rows to slot in line. Tom Golding then, yesterday's runner-up, but the championship leader, is on pole position with Giles Dawson alongside. Mark Sansom and Owen Hizzy make up row number 2, ahead of Chris White and Mike West on the third row. There'll be a 10-second delay between the G40 Cup cars leaving the grid and the GRDC elements, just to try and separate those two races. So half the grid will move in just a few seconds, because the red lights go on. They will go out now. Away they go. A good start made by Tom Golding from the inside of row number 1. Giles Dawson will not be able to beat him down to Redgate corner. Good start made by Owen Hizzy, the 74 car, on the outside of row 2 as well. He might just get his nose in front of Mark Sansom, who started third. Sansom, the grey car, late on the brakes. So too, though, was Giles Dawson, who was trying to get the lead away, and it's all gone wrong. Graham's prediction was absolutely right. Cars skating around through Redgate corner. Thankfully, not too serious a bit of contact there. They all just about stayed away from each other. The GRDC element of the race gets going, by the way. Mark Warren was on pole position there, with Stephen Docker in second place. At the front of the field then, Golding hangs on. Giles Dawson in second place. It's so tricky, isn't it? This is the first lap they've raced in anger in these conditions. You don't know how much grip you'll have when you arrive at Redgate corner, and a few of them had maybe less than they were anticipating.
Yeah, I mean, they've had 2 green flag laps, which is what you get in a wet race, so you can try and get some kind of idea about what's underneath you. But I've been here myself in these conditions in a catering race many years ago, and I remember in the green flag lap I nearly fell off like Jacqueline did. So very embarrassing, but you're absolutely right, Andy. The conditions are so slippery here. There's aviation fuel that comes down from the nearby airport, and Coppice, where they're going through now, is particularly slippy.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon to see people slithering out into that gravel trap. Race for the lead then descends upon the S's for the first time. Big braking zone here. Not really an overtaking opportunity on the way in, but on the way out, Giles Dawson might be a bit quicker than Tom Golding, because Golding just skated a bit wide. He was compromised on the exit. He knew it though, and immediately pulls to the inside line to defend. This is the story of yesterday's race, Golding versus Dawson, but it was Golding trying to do the overtaking yesterday. This afternoon, he's got the track position in the early stages and is trying his best to hang on to it. They head up the hill towards Goddard's corner, and well, Giles Dawson, there was nothing at all to separate these two yesterday. In these conditions, what do you reckon? Should one have an edge over the other, or are we going to continue to see this neck and neck racing between them?
Yeah, I'm just watching the behaviour of the drivers, and I can see that Golding is turning the car a little earlier into the corners. He's obviously got the front of the car working very well. At the same time, you can often find grip in these conditions on the outside, the well-known karting line, where there's less rubber on the track, and therefore there can potentially be more grip. But I think we saw Golding make a mistake in the chicane last time. He'll enter this time with a bit of nervousness. Will we see Dawson come back through for Melbourne helping?
Side by side here for third place, as Owen Hizzy has got Chris White trying to find a way through. Now, White started fifth, but of course they both benefited from Mark Sansom getting sideways at Redgate on lap one. And on the inside line, the 83 machine does go through into a podium place now then, and they're rather pairing off in front, aren't they? You've got two for the lead, two for third, and then a bit of a gaggle fighting further back for fifth place. Fifth across the line was Robin Grimwood, number 50, and then number 43, Mark Sansom behind him, but he is really the one that should start making good progress. Windscreen wipers on, not necessarily because it's raining, but because even though it's not fully wet out there, there is still spray, there's a lot of moisture in the air as well. Visibility is something that, even when we don't have a waterlogged track, can still be an issue.
It is, and you know, these cars have got a really funny little heated screen in them. So you don't get a fan in these cars, you get a heated screen. And there's a timer on, and the timer lasts 20 minutes. So if you miss it, your screen fogs up.
Yes, which is not ideal. Tom Holland's line through the crane curves was not ideal either. He's had a spin by the looks of it, which he was rejoining from. Side-by-side action then down to the S's. That's number 70 on the inside line. That's Roy Alderslade going past the 43 car of Mark Sansom. Now, Sansom started towards the front of the field, had good pace yesterday in the dry. We saw he had that moment at Redgate. Now, do you reckon that might have knocked his confidence a bit, and it's just taking him a bit of time to get back up to speed?
I would say yes, but he's just slinging it down the inside at the moment. I mean, look, any time you lose traction, any time the car does something you're not expecting, and let me tell you now that these cars, they're very snappy, and when you lose the rear on them, you don't often get it back, as we're probably about to see. There we go.
Yeah, well, that's number 4 this time. Oh, that's Jacqueline Waymond again. I think that's the same place she spun on the green flag lamp. You'd have thought that she'd have learned, but very easy to do in these conditions as they ever change. And we've got a slow car across the start-finish line, haven't we? That is number 83, I think, which is Chris White, who had just got himself into a podium place, and the car... Now, this is a rare sight, Graham. A Ginetta going, stays at 83 or 50. Yeah, it is 83, isn't it, Chris White? These cars are usually fairly bulletproof. The only time we tend to see them retiring is if they drive into each other or something else. Mechanical issues are not really a regular occurrence with Ginettas.
No, powered by a Ford Zetec engine with 135 horsepower. I've never seen one fail. So maybe he's got a transmission issue there. That's possibly why he had the handling issue earlier. I have to say, where he's parked that car, that could cause a safety car.
Yes, he's kind of... I don't know if he had much choice in the matter, because the car just wasn't for moving, was it? I think it just coasted to a halt at the end of the pit lane, and the trouble is it's close enough to the track that the marshals won't be able to get to it without putting themselves in the line of fire. If only he'd have turned a bit further left, they might have got away with it. But yeah, I see your thinking here, and I think we might get a safety car. Not good news for Tom Golding, who just put in the fastest lap on the first full flying lap of the race. There he is, the black and white Wasp liveried car. A second and a half clear of Giles Dawson at the start of the lap, but that second and a half will vanish, because we do indeed go safety car for the first time this weekend, I believe, in the Ginetta G40 Cup. And this is massively frustrating for someone like Tom Golding. He was frustrated after yesterday's race, felt he was quicker than Dawson, couldn't make the move stick, had to settle for second, and now he's got the lead, he's pulling away, everything's in hand, and everything seems to be conspiring against him.
Yeah, you say that, but you know what can happen? I mean, I'm telling you now, he'll have some race nerves inside him. What I often find with an early safety car is it's a chance to settle your mind and just refocus. And he'll now be, what he'll take the time to do now is try and find where the grip is. And one of the beautiful things about a safety car is you get that opportunity, a free opportunity, to go and find grip where you wouldn't otherwise look in a racing environment.
Number 23 is off, I'm afraid, down at the old hairpin as well. So that is a common sight, a car coming a cropper down at the bottom of the hill, very slippery down into that particular part of the circuit. And number 23 is Thomas Holland. So Tom Holland, who, as I said, qualified reasonably well mid-grid, but his race sadly comes to an end, and that, I fear, might take a bit longer to clear up than the car that stopped at the end of the pit lane. Here's a replay, just lost it on the way in.
Yeah, I suspect Jacqueline Wilson would have said I told you so, but yeah, that car's, he's so close to the edge, isn't he, there? If he could just try and back up, I can see what the marshals were trying to do. I suspect that car needs towing.
Yes, which will take time. Yeah, there you go, you see, they've moved this car fairly quickly, so Chris White's car out of the way. Shame for Chris that, because he got a top 5 finish. He's been in the top 5 in 3 of the first 4 races, but didn't score in the Alton Park opener a couple of weeks ago. Last time at Alton Park, we had 3 races, and Tom Golding won the first 2 and looked as though he was on course to have a decent championship lead coming into Donington Park, but then had a penalty applied after race 2. It went to the back of the grid. There was a huge mix-up as to where he was supposed to line up, when he was supposed to go. Long story short, got another penalty, having done a really good drive up to second place. Almost won the race, actually, even with a penalty. He's a talented chap, isn't he, Tom?
Yeah, he's a talented chap indeed, and he won this championship in 2018. I have to say, the thing I saw at Alton Park, the last race where he was put to the back of the grid because he had a mechanical issue, and then he went on the first red light for the G40 Cups. And one of the funniest things I've ever seen was him negotiating the GRDZ cars while they were stationary. But, you know, fair play to the bloke, as you say, Andy. He drove well.
Yeah, he did, and definitely championship material this year. He arrived at Donington behind Giles Dawson because of that penalty, and of course Giles beat him in yesterday's race, so I have the gap at 9 points between the two, and they are rather distancing themselves from everybody else. The marshals hard at work there, getting the 23 car of Thomas Holland out of the way down at the old hairpin. Thomas qualified 2.467 in the GRDC part of the race, and Tom is a rookie in the GRDC. So, as I said, 4 different classes. The G40 Cup, right, drivers that are right at the front of the field. The Chairman's Cup within the Ginetta G40s, which Mike West has been unbeaten in so far this year, but actually only second, because Robin Grimwood, who looked strong in the early stages of the race, has moved his way into 4th overall and is leading the Chairman's Cup, with Mike West down in 6th, Mark Sanson, the driver, separating them. In GRDC, Stephen Docker has been unbeaten so far this year. 4 race victories so far, all 3 at Alton. Won yesterday in the GRDC as well, and guess what? He's leading again today by only 1 position, though, actually, overall, over number 55, Brendan Maud. Finally, in the rookie class of the GRDC, similar domination from Mark Warren. And Mark Warren, again, Cal Surprise is leading in the rookie part of the race. So it is the G40 Cup where we've had the most competition so far, but great to see such a big entry out there. Ginetta do a great job of this year on year of attracting big grids to almost all of their championships. This year more than ever, though, Graham, that is a real testimony to just how well organised Ginetta are.
Yeah, and it's also a credit to the product as well. As I say, I've driven these cars a lot. They're great value. It's also a road car. Let's not forget that these GRDC cars can be driven on the road. They're road legal. And one thing you might have noticed, Andy, is that some of these cars have got 1 windscreen wiper, easy for me to say, and the other one has got 2. And that's simply that people are attempting to take weight out of the car by losing a windscreen wiper. So it's all about, you'll notice that some of them only have the one you see there. And the other thing you'll find interesting about these are the tyres. And what you've got here, and I know from my own experience, is a tyre that, unless you shave it, the wet tyre, unless you shave it all the way down, the car is incredibly unstable in a straight line. In a straight line, the car moves around, so they shave the tyre right down, take all the tread out of it, and somehow that gives you around 2 seconds a lap.
2 seconds?
It can be absolutely enormous around a place like this. Without too much standing water like we have today, it can be worth an awful lot of time. And if they don't shave the tyre, you'll see those people struggling more than the others.
And that is why the drivers want to work with teams who have experience in the category, and indeed a lot of the teams that enter cars into the various Ginetta Championships have been doing so for a while. They've learnt their craft, they know how to set the things up. Setup is also a bit of an unknown coming into this race because it's the first wet running we've had so far in this slightly shortened and delayed season, admittedly. What do you have to do to these cars? What can you do to these cars to give you that bit of comfort that you need in the wet?
It's all about making a car soft. softer a car is, you loosen off the roll bars, detach the roll bars, soften the dampers, perhaps put a little bit more toe in where the tyre pokes out at the bottom. That can give you a bit more grip. What you want the car to be is really soft and slow and lethargic on the way into the corner, so you can feel more what's going on, so there's more weight transfer into the car. You want everything to happen slower.
Yes, which is why often when you see drivers struggling in the wet, it may be they haven't quite got that setup right. If you don't have the confidence, then you are not going to be able to carry the corner speed, you're going to make mistakes, and sometimes it just becomes a bit of a battle of survival. Well, sadly, the safety car is rather eating into this race. We are into the second half of this 20-minute encounter. There is another race coming up later on this afternoon, though, of course, which will be, I'm sure, an entertaining one. Hopefully, the conditions will have improved slightly by that point. Intrigued to see how Mark Sansom gets on the restart. This restart, I think, there are always winners and losers with a safety car. Tom Golding definitely didn't want the safety car, whereas Giles Dawson did. And I suspect another driver who's quite grateful of the chance to catch his breath is Mark Sansom. We were speculating that maybe that moment he had at the start had knocked his confidence. He didn't quite know where the grip was. This is a good chance to just hit that reset button.
It is, and if you can see the really intelligent drivers, they're the ones moving around, as I said earlier, to try and find that grip. One thing I will point out to you is Dawson. See how much he's moving the car right now? All he's doing at the moment is he's putting extra heat into that wet tyre. A wet tyre doesn't like too much heat. If you watch at the front, you watch Golding, he's barely moving. I imagine he's only putting heat into the tyre through braking a lot, and that's much better for the carcass, the rubber of the tyre. So, yeah, if it were me, I wouldn't be moving around that much. You'll find the car a little bit too nervous, perhaps, at the restart.
Yes, it's instinctive, isn't it, though, when you're a racing driver and the safety car comes out and you're going so much slower than you want to be. You just think, oh, well, the tyres are losing temperature, I'll have no grip. But in the wet, again, an extra dynamic. And that's why a championship like this, it allows the drivers to learn their craft in that way and hopefully apply it in the future. 66 in the pit lane, Sean Fleming, who is one of our Chairman's Cup entrants. Sean Fleming, in fact, had a class podium in the third race at Alton Park. Didn't finish yesterday, though, for some reason. Started 12th for this one, and the car in the pit lane. And, well, having said that these things never break down, we've had one car stop on track and another one now possibly in the pit lane with a problem. Could just be a precautionary check, though. If you've got a niggly little issue, maybe a fogging up windscreen or something, the safety car is a perfect opportunity to come in and get that checked. It
is, and perhaps if he didn't finish yesterday, perhaps he doesn't like these conditions, eh? It looks like he might be back underway.
He can't quite decide where he's going, can he? He's not in the fast lane of the pit lane, which tells me he might be making the left-hand turn into the paddock. So Sean Fleming, who's been around in the G40 Cup for a few years now, is he going to go left? Is he going to go straight on? The paddock entrance is to his left, and that's where he's going, I'm afraid. So number 66 is out of the race, and that takes him out of contention for a class top 5. Lights out on the safety car, though. Good news. We're going to have a 5.5-minute sprint here to the end. Now, Giles Dawson's had a bit of time to think about this. He was losing time to Tom Golding before the safety car came out. He's had a chance to maybe come up with a new plan of attack. But given the pace Golding showed early on, he's going to be tough to beat.
He is going to be tough to beat. If I was Dawson, I'd be knowing where Golding's weakness is. And we know he's weak through that chicane. So I think I'd try and hang on the back of him until I get to the chicane, mess around in his mirrors a little bit, try and unsettle him, and try and get a run into the Melbourne hairpin.
There is a bit of needle between these two as well after yesterday's race. Dawson came out on top, but he wasn't that happy with the way that Tom Golding went about trying to beat him. So in the end, no harm, no foul in my eyes, but I know Giles will want to get one over on his sparring partner from yesterday in this second race. Right, safety car is in, just under 5 minutes in fact left to go. So time for another 2 or 3 laps, maybe 2 laps more than likely, for the leaders who come across the start-finish line now. Tom Golding to Giles Dawson is 0.8 of a second. Top 5 getting away there. In 6th place, Mike West was not really on his toes, but Mark Sansom, it's almost like we know what we're talking about, isn't it? Because straight away after the safety car, he's on his toes, he's trying to find a way past Robin Grimwood. Now, Grimwood is a Chairman's Cup competitor, so it's not actually a position for points, but he wants to clear Grimwood so that he can maybe tag on to the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when you're racing, you don't care who's in what class, you just want to be ahead of them.
Yes, which he is not yet, because Robin Grimwood has managed to fend off that particular attack. Top three then starting to gap these two. There's no doubt, though, that Sansom is quicker than Grimwood and quicker now than he was earlier on. There's a gap here to the right-hand side of the road. That's the outside through Starkey, but it's the inside into McLean's. Not necessarily the grippier side of the road, but it's the shortest route through the corner. He draws level, gets his nose in front and finds enough traction on the exit of the corner. I don't think Grimwood made that as hard as he could have done, although having said that, he's looking back up the inside into Coppice Corner. Nice move that from Sansom. He had the momentum out of the old hairpin, saw a gap, and it was a committed, confident move.
It was, but I think they're both being very polite with one another, actually. You know, in these conditions, any kind of contact will send you spinning. And so there was a great deal of respect given there. He gave him room on the exit, which is absolutely the right thing to do. Oh, but what's going to happen here? Looks like someone's about to send it.
This is Paolo Scripo going up the inside of the number 99 car into the chicane, and that is a place changing for 8th place, that is, and for position within the class as well. Another spin, I'm afraid. 24 has gone around coming through Starkey's. That's not a pleasant place to have a moment. Joe Butterworth, that is, pointing the wrong way. Well, you predicted that a few of them might get caught out by the conditions. Another one here off the road, 88 Ben Smart. A lot of these are drivers that were in the rookie element of the GRDC as well, so it can't be easy when you're relatively inexperienced in these cars, in racing in general, to get your head around these ever-changing conditions.
You know, thanks to COVID, these guys have had very little preparation time. They've done very little testing, and that they will have done. The weather's been fantastic. Now we've got wet weather. Some of these guys are driving on a wet track for the first time in their life on a road tyre.
Yes, well, some of them are driving on the road, not all of them are. Joe Butterworth is off, 29 is off now as well, through the Melbourne hairpin. And it is the race that no one seems to want to finish right now. 29 is Jeremy Sussex. Again, all of these drivers pretty much that we're seeing struggling. Ben Smart getting out of the car there, going, like I say, the run between Starkey's and Schwann's Curve there. A lot of these drivers are in the GRDC rookie class, which is still being led by Mark Warren, although he's losing places in the outright order. He's still keeping Rupert Lasslett at bay for the class lead.
Yeah, and it looks interesting to see here. Dawson's picked up some confidence, hasn't he? He has taken a lot of time out of Golding. You see, he's going a little bit wider now. I think he's managed to work out where some grip is. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a change for the lead soon.
Yes, and as they start to battle, perhaps, don't count out Owen Hizzy in third position. Where did Hizzy end up in yesterday's race? He was third place in yesterday's encounter too, so he'll want to maybe make a leap up to the second or even first step of the podium. So it's a three-car battle for the lead then, making its way down the exhibition straight. We will have time for one more lap after this, so Giles Dawson had better get a move on. Has a look to the inside into the chicane. You don't really do enough braking into that corner, though, to make that one stick. It's also one line, realistically, through the middle of it. Would it have been better there, maybe, to just back off and carry the speed out of the chicane?
He tried to unsettle him too early. He's doing it again. He's trying to get in the mirrors of the other guy. But if you do it too early, you just cost yourself time. So we can see he's lost time at the moment. Let's see if he gets a good exit from here. He's taken a very wide entry. Lost the back of the car a little bit, but even so, I think he's gained on him a little bit there, Andy.
Yeah, he's closed. You can go up the inside into Goddard, but again, maybe the outside line is better. And he learns this time. You see, he takes the wider entry, only half a car's width wider, but that might just give him an extra burst of energy, an extra burst of acceleration off the final turn. The top two then were 1.1 seconds apart at the start of the lap. At the end of it, they're less than half a second apart, and they are now dropping Owen Hizzy. One more lap to go. Another spin down at the old hairpin. Car number 4, Jacqueline Waymont again. She'll be glad to see the back of this place, I think. That's the third spin she's had, and only 2 of them actually under racing conditions. Giles Dawson, though, applying the pressure to Golding. Now, has he shown his hand too early, do you reckon? Golding will be aware that Dawson is quick into the chicane, he's quick into the hairpins. They're the best overtaking opportunities, but maybe it was best not to show his hand until the last lap.
Yeah, and he looks to me like he's overdriving the car a little bit at the moment. You see the attitude of Dawson's car. He's moving the car around more now. He knows he's got a lap to go. Dare I suggest there's a little bit of desperation started to slip in. Golding's got a very calm head. Look how relaxed he is. He's obviously looking forward. The worst thing you can do is look in your rear view mirror.
Yes, exactly. If you start driving through your mirror, then more mistakes come, and it's tempting then to start driving more defensively than you need to do. Now, driving on the white line into Coppice is not advisable. That will be like ice at the moment, and look at the time it loses him, and now Giles Dawson at the part of the circuit where he is strong is closer than he's been all race long, side by side, less than half a lap to go. Giles Dawson, yesterday's winner, pulls to the outside this time of Tom Golding. They're almost dead level. Golding will try to command the apex into the left-hander, and Dawson goes right around the outside. Fantastic move for Giles Dawson. He's got the lead away, but now Tom Golding Golding into his favourite overtaking place from yesterday's race, the Melbourne Hairpin, might be able to get up alongside again. He goes to the outside line, sells the dummy, goes to the inside, late on the brakes. It's an action replay of yesterday's race. Will they make contact like they did yesterday? Oh, so close to rubbing panels, side by side out of the Melbourne Hairpin. The next corner, the last corner, is a left-hander, and there is traffic in front. That's Jacqueline Wayman recovering from her multiple spins, and it's not going to work for Golding. They go either side of her. Golding right round the outside. Watch for the exit speed. It will be a drag race to the start-finish line. Dawson runs out wide, side by side, banging wing mirrors. I think Giles Dawson will hang on. I've no idea who just won that race. 46 one-thousandths of a second is all that separates them, and it's in Giles Dawson's favour. He gets the victory in round number 5 of the Ginetta G40 Cup. Tom Golding threw everything at him in that final sector. That could so easily have gone wrong, but in the end, proper motor racing, and Tom Golding was not going to be beaten without a fight.
Yeah, I owe Dawson an apology. I was just saying how he was overdriving it. All of a sudden, Golding made some mistake. In Coppice, lost too much time, then started looking in his mirrors too much. Although I will say, valiant attempt to get back at him at the hairpin. Really, really good. And to try and go around the outside at the last corner, I thought he was going to go off.
Yeah, he came from quite a long way back into Melbourne and got the car stopped, in fairness. This is the exit of the last corner. Golding with the wide line in. Now, they make a little bit of contact there, and it almost looked to me as if Golding was going to pip him until they did that. Now, I'm not suggesting Giles Dawson did that intentionally, but it didn't hurt him, did it?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, anyone would move across at that point. And I don't know if you just saw that, Andy, but actually, Dawson was pumping the air before the start-finish line, and he knew he'd won it, and he was going to move that car over no matter what.
Brilliant stuff there. Giles Dawson wins round number 5 of the Ginetta G40 Cup on the line from Tom Golding. I told you this championship was exciting, and that was a brilliant advert for just how exciting it can be. Owen Hizzy had a lonely race in 3rd, Mark Sansom in 4th, with Robin Grimwood in 5th, winning the Chairman's Cup. In the GRDC, it was another win for Mark Warren in the rookie class, and for Stephen Docker in the outright GRDC part of the race. In fact, he finished 14th and 15th on the track as well. Confirmation of the result then, 46 thousandths, all that could separate the two championship protagonists. Giles Dawson further extends his points lead there over Tom Golding. Hizzy 3rd, Sansom 4th, and Robin Grimwood in 5th position was the first of the Chairman's Cup runners. Then it was Mike West, Ignacio Zanon, Roy Alderslade, Paolo Scripo, and Mark Lee at the back end of the top 10. And Lee was 4th in Chairman's Cup. In fact, it was Grimwood, West and Alderslade who were the top 3 Chairman's Cup finishers in that race. And then if you go down to 40th, you see Mark Warren's name. He was the winner of the rookie part of the GRDC as well. And despite a few of them having the odd moment out there, Graham, most of them getting to the end, we expected a few of them to slip up, but it's hard for me to understand and convey just how slippery it is out there. I mean, you said earlier on this place is known for being treacherous in the wet. Just keeping the thing on the island is a challenge.
It really genuinely is, and I think what people don't understand when they're watching on television, they're used to driving on the roads and they don't have these problems, but you have to understand that you're driving a car at an absolute limit. And as I say, on a road tyre, in the case of the GDRC stuff. And so they really is, honestly, these guys will be wheel spinning in 2nd gear, they're wheel spinning even possibly in 3rd gear. It's a psychological mess in their head where you just think to yourself, I'm going to go off at every point, every time you touch the brake. There's no ABS in these cars.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You are on a knife edge the whole time. It's a balancing act. The closer you get to that knife edge, the quicker you'll go, but it's oh so easy to overstep the mark. Stephen Docker there continues his unbroken run of GRDC wins then. 5 wins from 5. The same is true for Warren in the rookie class too. As we check out some of the highlights from an entertaining 5th round of the Ginetta G40 Cup. At the start, we anticipated drama at Redgate and we almost got it. The grey car of Mark Sansom, number 43, didn't get a great start, tried to carry a bit too much speed into Redgate corner, loses the rear and was lucky not to cause a sizable chain reaction crash. He lost momentum, rejoined and would eventually pick his way back through the order. In GRDC, things were a little more civilised. It was a lights to flag win in the GRDC for Stephen Docker. Most of the action coming in the G40s. On the initial start, Tom Golding had the lead, Giles Dawson went with him, and they started to drop Owen Hizzy in 3rd place, but it wouldn't be long before a couple of the drivers further down the order would find the limits of adhesion, and we ended up with a safety car. The first to go, the number 23 car of Thomas Holland, who had a spin coming through Hollywood. 10 10 out of 10 for style and 10 out of 10 for the others for avoiding him too. And that sadly was not the last of his dramas, because I think a lap later he lost it for good down at the old hairpin, beached the car in the gravel trap, and at about the same sort of time Chris White's car stopped on the start finish line and ended up out of the race with more collisions at Starkey's after the safety car had come back in. It was almost doubtful that we'd get to the finish. Thank goodness we did, though. 29, another to have a moment at the Melbourne hairpin. It all boiled down to the last half a lap, though. Giles Dawson finding a way past Tom Holland as they came out of Coppice corner of Tom Golding. Golding tried to fight back into the final corner, got a great exit, but it wasn't quite enough. Great racing, as ever, from the Ginetta G40 Cup.